Well, hello again, my friends, and welcome once more to the Invisible College. And I've got a very special one for you today. It's called Sleeping Beauty, the Ugly Truth. And I think you're going to like this one because we're going to go into some depth into the whole Rosicrucian movement and what it was really all about. Now, I'm going to elaborate much further on this subject within the college itself. And actually, the direction of the videos that I'm doing are going to be more and more done for members of the college. I'm going to continue doing videos like this for general YouTube, but I'm now going to be focusing more the really important information on the college itself. So if you want to take part in these more esoteric lectures that I shall be doing, please do consider actually joining the college. And I'll talk about a bit more about that later on at the end. And also give us a like if you like the video, and press that subscribe button and the little bell, as they always say. But enough on that. Let's press on with what we're going to do today, which is Sleeping Beauty, the Ugly Truth. Now, I'm going to start here with this diagram or picture where we see something very strange. We see this figure lying in a grave with a snake curled around him, or dragon, and in the background we see various ruins, and it's a rather disturbing image, I think you'll agree, but very, very esoteric in what it's meant to figure. But it requires a bit of thought and a bit of understanding to see what this means. So we're going to go into this a bit more in due course. It's actually an illustration from a book by Michael Maier, who was a German philosopher of the early 17th century. Actually, he lived in the late 16th as well, but I think he died in 1622. And this book, I think, came out around about 1616. So it's an important book in many respects, but we'll be looking more into that in due course. The meaning is not obvious, and neither is its connection to alchemy or other philosophical stroke scientific movements of the times. However, as we shall see, it has a profound meaning for our own times. Yes, indeed it does. And this is Michael Maier, he was the author, 1568, I said it's late 16th, to 1622. Physician, alchemist, poet, writer of epigrams, and composer of madrigals. That's kind of music. He was also, for a time, a counsellor to Emperor Rudolf II. He was deeply interested in alchemy and lived in Prague. That's Rudolf II. Now, I've written quite a bit about Rudolf II in one of my books, London, the New Jerusalem. I know it's Prague and not London, but he comes in there quite a bit. A very interesting guy, a major figure in that period. And a lot of people, including Dr. John Dee, went to Prague to meet him and try to get him to be their patron. Michael Maier was another one, and he was a doctor and a physician, and I think he had rather more success than did Dr. Dee. Anyway, a German, Maier was a contemporary of Robert Fludd. Now, we talked a lot about Robert Fludd in other lectures that I've done, and I've shown you many times a diagram of nature holding a monkey on a chain. You might remember that one in particular. But Robert Fludd is a very important person as well at this time, author and British. So, a German, Maier was a contemporary of Robert Fludd. As he visited England in 1611, staying there until 1616, it is possible that they might have met. Both he and Fludd were deeply influenced by the Rosicrucian pamphlets that were published between 1614 to 16, almost certainly in Oppenheim. Now, a couple of words here. The pamphlets, one was called the Fame or Farmer of the Rosicrucians, and the second one was called the Confession, the Confessio, the Confessions of the Rosicrucians. Quite long pamphlets, sort of political in many respects, talking about an instauration of science, a revolution in the way knowledge was to be, and the birth of the new age and so on. Caused a major disturbance in Europe at the time. Some people were very, very pro and wanted to meet these people and join the Rosicrucian movement, and others were highly opposed and wanted to hunt them down and burn them at the stake if they could find them. So anyway, he was very influenced by this, and Oppenheim is a town actually in what was called then the Palatinate, which was a small dukedom on the Rhine, with its capital at Heidelberg. And the Duke at that time, Frederick V, was married to Elizabeth, the daughter of James I. She was the daughter of James I and the sister of Charles I, the king who had his head chopped off. And interestingly, as it turned out, it was one of Elizabeth, the Duchess of the Palatinate, the wife of Frederick V, who was the ancestor of George I, who's the ancestor, of course, of our present royal family. So that line that went through Heidelberg actually ended up on the throne of Great Britain. That's an interesting point. Anyway, Oppenheim was a very important place in terms of publishing. The Debray, excuse me, the Debray brothers came from Holland originally, or the Netherlands, I should say, and moved to Oppenheim, where there was a very interesting atmosphere at the time as a result of the marriage of Frederick and Elizabeth. They were a very young couple, and they were bringing lots of new ideas. It's a very sort of new age kind of place in terms of the early 17th century. And forward-thinking people wanted to go and live there. It had a magnet, and the Debray brothers decided to set up their printing works in Oppenheim, and they printed a lot of famous alchemical texts. We'll be talking about some of them in due course. The town was the headquarters of the Debray Printing Company. It was responsible for publishing Flood's and Maier's works, as well as other academic texts. It is possible and even likely that Maier introduced Flood to this German company. Well, I say German, it was Dutch originally, but it was in Germany. Michael Maier's great work was a book he wrote called Atalanta Fugiens. The stated theme of the book is a Greek myth concerning a huntress called Atalanta. She was very beautiful, but also a great athlete who could run very fast. She had many suitors, but in order to win her hand in marriage, they had first to outrun her in a race. If they failed, she killed them. So, a difficult lady to court, I would have thought. Many tried but failed, but eventually Hippomenes came on the scene. He knew he couldn't outrun Atalanta, but he had a ruse. First, he enlisted the help of the goddess Aphrodite, that's the Greek name for the Roman goddess Venus, who gave him some beautiful apples. These he dropped one at a time during the race. Atalanta, under the influence of Aphrodite, fell in love with him. She stopped to pick them up, the apples that is, and so he managed to beat her after all. This angered the moon goddess Artemis, to whom Atalanta had sworn a life of virginity. I should just say here, Artemis was also the goddess of hunters and huntresses, and she was a virgin goddess, and so she had taken an oath of virginity to get these powers of being a huntress from Artemis, that's Atalanta. And now she was turning against that, and she was falling in love with Hippomenes. To make matters worse, they consummated their love in her temple. That's the temple of Artemis. She therefore punished the saucy couple by turning them into lions. Thenceforth they had to pull her chariot through the sky. And you can see the story of Atalanta, quite a bit of it here, stretching round, and you can see on the right here Hippomenes with the apples, and she's picking them up, and then you can see them down in the little temple on the bottom right hand corner, getting it on, you might say, and then coming out there the two lions. So we have the story of Atalanta as the basis, so-called basis, for this book of emblems and fugues, in fact, that Maier is going to write. Neither the text nor the illustrations to Maier's book has much to do with the subject of Atalanta's flight. Well, that's the odd thing about this book. You look through it, and there's all sorts of alchemical pictures and other pictures like this one that don't, at first sight anyway, have anything to do with the flight of Atalanta. Artemis, of course, was a moon goddess, and you can see the moon there up in the top left-hand corner. And so, in this picture, Atalanta's race takes place at night. She is personified as nature. In one hand, she clutches various fruits and vegetables, that's her left hand, and the food provided by nature. In the other, she holds flowers, notably roses, symbolic of the Rosicrucians. The Rosicrucian pamphlets are all about a reformation of science. Consequently, the picture is really about the philosophy of science. It's not about Atalanta at all. The scientist must follow the footsteps of nature in order to find the truth. If he needs them, he must wear glasses and light his way with the lamp of reason. That lamp symbolizes the mind. He must follow the footsteps of nature. Only then will he have a chance of catching up with her. So the scientist is trying to understand nature, understand the laws that govern nature. So this is telling us he must follow in her footsteps, like following Atalanta in her race. The play on words, ideas and pictures is characteristic of the Rosicrucians in general. For example, they were not really interested in alchemy as such. They weren't really trying to turn lead into gold, but rather in the human self-development. Philosophical alchemy it's sometimes referred to as. There is much misunderstanding concerning the Rosicrucians of the 17th century. It was not a cult or closed society. It was a philosophical movement, rather as the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was in the 19th century British art. It was a society only in the sense that the brothers, so-called, shared a certain outlook. You could say they got it. What the Rosicrucians got, they did not reveal directly. Instead, they wrote manifestos, highly illustrated books on alchemy, or constructed elaborate semi-religious texts. To the public, they claimed to be members of an esoteric school of initiates. This, they said, had been founded centuries earlier by someone called Christian Rosenkreuz, or CRC for short. Rosenkreuz means Rosy Cross in German. Christian Rosenkreuz is also supposedly a German. The mainstream media of the time dismissed the legend of CRC as a ludibrium. This Latin word is often translated into English as hoax, and so the legend of CRC was no more than a fairy tale. That's in the opinion of the wise people of the time, the scholars. Since there was no such person as Christian Rosenkreuz, it followed he could not have founded a school. the whole thing was a hoax, at least in their opinion it was. And this remains the opinion of academia to this day. If you read academic textbooks about the Rosicrucians, they will tell you it's just a hoax. There was no such person as Christian Rosenkreuz, and these people who claimed to be Rosicrucians were no such thing. And it was just a hoax. Why they were playing this hoax on the world, who knows? But, you know, people are crazy sometimes, aren't they? That's the attitude. However, to dismiss Rosicrucianism in this way is to entirely miss the point. A truer translation of ludibrium, at least in this context, is game, joke, or puzzle. The Rosicrucian writers were playing a highly sophisticated game. Yes, they were. The game was to share knowledge in coded form that only those who got it would understand. Very often the text of their books was quite meaningless. The real teaching in it was to be found in the pictures. Thus, it didn't matter if the book were written in Latin, English, German, Italian, or anything else. An intelligent person, one who was attuned to their outlook, could get it by looking at the pictures. The great thing about the ludibrium was that anyone could play the game. What was required was to write a book and fill it with images that other Rosicrucians would understand. On the other hand, mainstream scholars would lose themselves in the text. They would not get the true meaning of the pictures and so would remain ignorant. They didn't get it. Michael Maier was an adept at this game, and so too was Johann Mylius, the author of a book called Philosophia Reformata, published in 1622. This was the ultimate in Rosicrucian alchemical works of this kind, and you can see it here. And there's just a few of the pictures. This book is full of pictures, and you'll have seen many of them, I'm sure, if you've read anything to do with alchemy and esoteric things. They often borrow the pictures from this book, which are great, and they have a lot of information in them. But the text, well, it's unreadable, as it is in many of these so-called alchemical textbooks. Let us now return to the first image we looked at, as it too comes from Atalanta Fugiens, by Michael Maier. It is not at all obvious why the image has been included in a book based on the myth of Atalanta. Indeed, it has been asserted that Debray printers had a bunch of printing blocks with images left over from another project that didn't materialize. According to this theory, Maier was invited to use these prints in a book of his own. As a result, he wrote Atalanta Fugiens. So this theory is that these printers, Debray, probably at great expense to themselves, had manufactured a bunch of plates or blocks, printing blocks, to make these prints for another book that someone was going to write. And perhaps they hadn't written the book, or they hadn't written a good enough book, or they died, whatever. They're left over with these printing blocks. So they turn to one of their favourite authors, Maier, and they say to him, well, we got these printing blocks, see what you can do with them, make a book and, construct a story around them. And if you read the actual text, that's how it reads. It looks like he's got the pictures, he doesn't really understand the pictures, so he writes some text to a play on words to do with the pictures, and he writes some music actually to go with the pictures even. Puts the whole lot into a book, and people can sing the songs, they can read the poetry, they can look at the pictures and have fun. That's how it's presented. But is it true? Was that really what happened? I believe this is very far from the truth. Maier was playing the game according to the unwritten rules. Those who were worthy which is to say got it, would understand the inner meaning. To everyone else, it was doggerel. Yeah, that you read this book and it is doggerel. Now, this image is from another alchemical book, Actorum Chemicorum Hominiensium by Urban Hirner of Stockholm. So there's a bit of a mouthful, but this Swedish writer, he also uses some of these images, and he's got a lovely one here, which is again of Mother Nature, but here she's symbolized as Artemis, the virgin goddess of the Atalanta story. So you've probably heard of Diana of Ephesus, and she's based on Artemis of Ephesus, and a many-breasted goddess, Nature, who feeds everything that lives. And she rules over the elements and the kingdoms of nature, mineral, vegetable, and animal. Everything is recycled in her furnace, which is stoked up by a little cherub or nature spirit. This is the world in which we find ourselves asleep. It is a world of matter, fruitfulness, and ultimately death. If we want eternal life, we need to escape this planet of death and decay. That's the hidden message here. I don't know if you see it, but anyway, I've talked about this before, and I'll probably do so again in the college. Moving on. Many of you will doubtless have seen the 1999 movie, The Matrix, starring Keanu Reeves as Neo. You see him standing there in the corner, in the center. In my opinion, it is undoubtedly the best scientific fiction ever made. This is because it is a modern-day ludibrium, which is to say a game, not a hoax. In mathematics, a matrix is a table of numbers. Such tables can have many uses and properties. The table shown to the right is often called the magic square of the sun. I won't go into this now, but it has the property such that every row and every column adds up to 111. The sum of all the numbers in the table comes to 6 times 111, which equals 666. 666. This is, of course, the number of the beast in the book of Revelation. And I've talked about that in a separate lectures, one of the ones I've done on the Revelation series on the number of the beast. You should look at that if you want to know more about this. Matrix tables are used in computing. Indeed, the array of memory cells in a computer chip's internal memory can be thought of as a matrix with the numbers in constant flux. Thus, the movie's title, The Matrix, symbolizes the world of computer memory and hence AI, artificial intelligence. We see this illustrated in the movie, where we observe computer code, including simulated pictures, moving down computer screens in accordance with an algorithm of great complexity. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You see all the numbers going down the screen, and sometimes a picture comes down there. Actually, in a computer, you wouldn't see any kind of picture shown in the memory. The pictures also are done with ones and zeros, but they're getting the point across that the matrix is the computer's memory, and it's all about being drawn into the matrix, into the computer memory of a gigantic computer that runs the whole world. That's a bit of a cautionary tale in itself. The theme of the matrix is that human minds can be drawn into the matrix world. Here they can be controlled and entertained, while the life force of their bodies, their electricity, is drained off for use by machines. Again, if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. But matrix also means a womb in Latin. For a fetus, this is a place of security and nurture. However, In order to progress, that's to say the fetus, must grow into a viable baby. It must then travel through the birth canal and go through the trauma of birth itself. This second meaning is hinted at in the title and graphically portrayed in the scenes where the hero, Neo, breaks free from his womb-like existence. The pipes and tubes that keep him plugged into the matrix detach. As far as the machine world is concerned, he is aborted and flushed away. However, he is rescued by those who are already free. They take him on board their craft. Here he is able to learn what it means to be really human. I'll just say a couple of words here. There's a fantastic sequence in the film, the movie, where Neo is in this tank, naked and covered in this slimy stuff, and he's got all these pipes plugged into his spinal cord and his head, and he's being fed by tubes, and he's asleep, and his brain is being entertained. His brain is in the matrix, and there's a computer simulation of life going on, and all the place is filled with similar tanks with people with their brains plugged into the matrix. They think they're alive because they're in this computer simulation, and they're having jobs, they go to restaurants, they're meeting each other, doing things, but actually it's all a recording, and it goes over and over and over again. Around about 1978, I think it's supposedly set, early 80s maybe, and it goes around in a loop, a loop, a loop, a loop. But they don't remember that. They go back and they're dreaming it. As the real cells lying in these tanks, they're just dreaming, and they're in the matrix, and they're living this dream life while their energy is being taken away from them by the gigantic machines that need it for their own function. And that's kind of a very worrying thing when I see all these computer games where people are in simulated realities, and that they're trying to do more and more with us, and want to implant chips in your brain even, so you can interface with computers directly. Sounds very like the Matrix to me, and that's a cautionary tale. With newly developed skills, that's after he's been rescued. He's rescued by the other guys. They have a spaceship, and they pick him up. With newly developed skills, Neon is able to return at will into the world of the Matrix to take on the bad guys. His goal is to free the rest of humanity from being no more than disposable batteries, providing a power source for the alien machine, the machine world that has taken over the Earth. So there's a whole sense that the Earth has been taken over by these machines, and mankind has been turned into just a vegetable, supplying energy for those machines. Neo, played by Keanu Reeves, defeats the bad guys, the agents, that's what they're called, when he wakes up in the dream world of the Matrix, and exercises powers that, compared to it, are supernatural. Now, I just want to say a couple of words here. This is very similar to the idea of Jesus Christ coming here to Earth and having supernatural powers, because he's not bound by the laws of nature on this planet. He's actually something higher, and so he can raise people from the dead. To us, that seems totally impossible. It seems completely daft, bonkers idea if you're bound in to the Matrix, the world. But to a supernatural being, someone who's come from a higher up, it's peanuts. It's easy. It's what you do. So this sense that Neo has woken up to his true self, and as his true self, not just what the machine is playing back of his own accord. He's actually got willpower, and he can stop things and make things happen that he wants to happen. So that's the crux of this movie. I'm sorry if I've ruined the plot for those of you who haven't seen it, but it is a brilliant movie. and you should go and see it if you haven't, and get it out on Netflix or whatever, download it and watch it, and buy the DVD if you can. It's the best science fiction movie ever made, in my opinion. Anyway, he is able to stop bullets with his mind and cannot be killed by the agents. This is a parable for our times. Living in this world, we are doomed to die sooner or later. However, if we can manage to wake up in time, we can move into a higher world where death is no more. This heavenly region is our true home, not the matrix reality of death and decay in which we find ourselves on planet Earth. Now, Michael Maier understood this too. His version of the matrix is planet Earth itself. Here, mankind sleeps as if in a grave, and that figure sleeping there, lying in that dug-out grave, he represents mankind as a whole. Curled around him is a dragon that holds him hypnotized. Hypnos is Greek for sleep, and you can see the way the dragon is right up to his face, and breathing into his nostrils even to keep him asleep. He's bound by that. Around him are the ruins of former civilizations. You look round the picture, you can see them. The Gothic arch immediately behind his head and tower symbolize the Middle Ages. The Colosseum, you see that to the right there, the rounded building, that's based on the Colosseum in Rome, represents the Roman Empire. In the distance, and barely visible, are pyramids, symbolic of even earlier civilizations. They're very pointy pyramids, but people often did depict pyramids as being very pointy in those days. They didn't really know what they looked like. They'd only heard rumors about them. So they represent ancient Egypt, and hence earlier civilizations going way back to the dawn of time. Still asleep, hypnotized by the gaze of the dragon, he does not see his predicament, that's the man, or the vulnerability of the present civilization. He's like the figures in the Matrix, lying in their baths of slime, and hypnotized, put to sleep, dreaming, living a dream life, and not aware of his surroundings or his situation, that the dragon, the devil, has got him in its coils. It is all a parable about time. As his civilizations rise and fall, mankind sleeps on in the grave of the earth. The dragon, symbolic of Satan, has him/her firmly in his grip. He keeps him, and I should also say her, asleep, dreaming perhaps of a matrix world of unreality. Now, I want to turn now to something else, and this is actually quite important. It's the crux, absolute crux of everything this college is all about, and why I think you should join it. If you wish to wake up, I can help you wake up, but I can only do it if you're willing to follow the path. It's great that you want to watch these videos, and I thank you very much for doing that, and I hope you will subscribe and like them if you like them. But that's only the first stage. Actually, you've got to, if you want to climb a mountain, it's very, very important to find out what you can about mountaineering and to watch movies about it. But in the end, you've got to put on a jacket and get the right shoes and get the right crampons and picks and things and ropes and get out there and climb the mountain. Otherwise, you haven't climbed the mountain. You've only dreamt about it. You've only thought about it. And this is the whole point about the esoteric path. You've actually got to do it. You've actually got to get out there and do it. And you're going to need help, just like Neo needed help at the start, the early part of the Matrix, when he's been flushed down the toilet into a river or something, and the other guys fish him out and take him into their craft and get him back. and nurse him round and start teaching him the tricks that he needs to know. That's the school that he went to. He goes to the matrix school, if you like, how to break the matrix, and then he can come back and do his stuff, and he does in the later parts of the film. So it's very, very important to realise that not necessarily this school. You might find someone better for you, someone that you like better, you like their way of doing things. But this is a path, and I've been down the path, so I know. And if you trust me, come on board, and to do that you'll have to join. But anyway, the two worlds. We've got first of all the first world, the world of nature. That's the world of the matrix. Our science teaches us that this is the only reality. Everything we can see and measure belongs to this world, be it galaxies, atoms, or ourselves. So get this, take this point. When someone says the science says this, the science says that, or it's not scientific, or that's nonsense, it's not science. What they're saying is, it's not the science of nature, the natural world. They used to call scientists natural philosophers, studiers of nature. They changed the word to scientist. Science means knowledge. They don't know anything. They have theories. They have theories in plenty. And often those theories change. You read a science textbook from 100 years ago and you think, did the people really believe this? And you can bet in 100 years' time they'll pick up a textbook from today and they'll say, these people were nuts, weren't they? They believed this. So science is a moving feast. It's always changing. There's new ideas come along, new things are discovered, and it renders the old things irrelevant. But it's ultimately is trying to fit the universe, nature, everything, life, death, everything, into this little box that can be ruled by the laws of gravity, the laws of motion, the laws of light, put into this little box of ideas, so they can sit back and say, well, up there was the universe started with a black hole. And the black hole went bang, and then you had the big bang, and then within a microsecond, the galaxies are formed, and it's expanding ever since. And here we are. That's a myth. That's a creation myth. It's not reality. That's a creation myth from people who think you can fit everything into their narrow box, their narrow-minded, earth-based, natural philosophy. But there is another possibility. And you see above it another box, and this is the world of supernature. Our science teaches us that this does not exist. It is not bound by the laws of nature. Hence, miracles can happen. We are supernatural beings living in the matrix. This is the big message I want to get across to you. If you never watch another of my videos, you never have anything else to do with me, I want you to get this one message on board. There is the supernatural. People always understood that in the past. It's only very recent times, since maybe the late 19th century, when you had people like Nietzsche saying God is dead, when you had Darwin with his crazy ideas about evolution, when you had all these well, I won't call them what Gurdjieff used to call such people, but let's call them learned gentlemen of new formation. That was one of his terms for what we would call scientists today. They don't believe in the supernatural, therefore the supernatural doesn't exist. Therefore, if anyone says something has happened that's a miracle, they must be off their rocker. There must be a natural explanation, because there can't be miracles because there's nothing supernatural. That is the approach of so-called scientists. They're not real scientists. These are learned gentlemen of new formation, as Gurdjieff would say. They're not truly Gnostics. They're true people who know are the Gnostics. They know from personal experience. So there is a supernatural world. And when you hear about Jesus rising, ascending to heaven and disappearing into a cloud, that's because he's a supernatural being. He's like Neo in the Matrix. Neo can do things that other people can't in the Matrix. Yeah, they're tied into its laws. Neo's no longer tied into its laws because he's rediscovered his true self and become supernatural, as far as that's concerned. So you need to do the same thing if you want to get off this planet. So we see here, coming to terms with our supernatural reality. We have at the bottom the world of sleep, the matrix, the world of nature, governed by the laws of nature, studied in natural philosophy or science, right? That's our normal world, that's the matrix. And then we have a transitional world of transformation, a borderland between the two, when you're starting to learn, starting to wake up, but not yet fully awoken. And then you have the heavenly world, the unseen, the world of supernature, governed by the laws of supernature, studied in supernatural philosophy. And that's what the Rosicrucians and others were interested in. It's what all wise people are interested in, is how do we transcend? How do we reach the supernatural world? And of course, within the supernatural world, you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be lots of different steps. You don't just go from this world and to the next world, the supernatural world. I'm in heaven, I play my harp, and I do that for all eternity. No. You can bet there's going to be lots of other schools and levels and things to be doing that's going to keep you occupied for all that eternity. That's the truth. But it frightens the hell out of the scientists who are anchored into natural philosophy, and everything can be understood, with a microscope or telescope or whatever you need. You look at it, you work out, and you write a book about it, and maybe the laws that you discover carry your name. That's not it. You've got to find supernature. You need to transcend, like Neo transcending in the Matrix. Now, waking up from the hypnotic dream of nature is hard to do on your own. You bet. This is why there have always been esoteric schools in this world. They are not always easy to find, but this invisible college is one such. It may not be around for very long, neither may our civilization, so take advantage of it while it is here. And this is an image from another book, I think published in 1618, and it shows the Rosicrucian college moving around on wheels, linked to the hand of God at the top, and they're trumpeting out their message. Wake up! Yeah, come and join us, brothers. And some people hear what they're saying. Man's being winched out of the well of ignorance, and he's going to join it. But most of the others are just walking past. There's one there with a pike on his shoulder walking past, another one on a horse, another one just plodding along. And you've got another guy who has heard the message. He's holding an anchor, the anchor of faith. So there we see what happens. And these colleges, they come and go. The Gurdjieff, I've talked a lot about him. He had a school, genuine school, college, where he taught certain things to people. Most of them didn't understand what he was saying. And actually, it's easier to understand him now than I think it was then, when he was teaching in the time of the First World War and into the 1920s. But this is our opportunity, and I don't say I know everything, but I know quite a lot, and I can help you with your own progress, just as someone who's been up the mountain before can help you learn how to mountaineer. So take advantage of it, because I'm not going to be here forever. I'm an old man now, and old men have this nasty habit of dying and leaving the body. Doesn't mean I'm dead, because I'm not this body. I'm the soul living in the body. And you'll discover that too. Anyway, you can join it, that's the Invisible College, by becoming a patron of this channel. Go to patreon.com/Adrian G. Gilbert. Right, that's the link that you need, and that will show you how you can join. Here you'll find details. It will only cost you £5 per month. That's the beginning level, and most people at that level, there's nothing wrong with that. That's where we're starting, and that price is less than a couple of cups of coffee. Actually, in parts of London, I live near London. You will often find a coffee will cost you £5. A pint of beer will cost you double that. So it's not a lot to ask for once a month, and you'll get a lot for that, you know. And this college is at early days, but there are lectures I'm putting on there that you won't find for free on YouTube anymore. You'll have to go to the college. And I'm setting up the college website. It should be running by the end of this week, I hope. And you'll be able to find indexes to all the lectures that I put on YouTube. And for those of you who are members, there are other lectures that you will be able to watch, but other people won't. Anyway, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. And I thank you for your time. And do give us a like and press that button, subscribe button, the little bell, and everyone says this, don't they? And if you feel up to it, come and become a patron, and we'll take it from there. I wish you well.